Hello everybody, my name is Xuul and welcome to another edition of Xuul Reviews Games. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the Turing Test. For those of you who are unaware, the Turing Test is a first-person narrative-driven puzzle game that explores themes like consciousness and the challenge and the meaning of human intuition. The player takes control of Ava Turing, an engineer for the International Space Agency, and will progress through a narrative-driven story that deals with introspection and morality, all while uncovering the hidden mysteries of Europa. This is a game that I've been very excited to take a look at, and I would like to give the publishers a special thank you for giving me a copy to review early. I really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the most important aspect of the game, the options menu, of course. We have separate sliders for the volume, always nice. Under display options, things are good there as well. The FOV slider, which I like to see, and there is different options for full screen, including full screen windowed mode, which is my preferred use because I do have two monitors. Speaking of dual monitors, this game alt tabs really good. It also has the ability to disable motion blur, something that I pretty much need to have in a game because motion blur just makes me feel dizzy and stuff like that. Other than that, we have some very standard stuff, just a basic anti-aliasing. I'm not quite sure what kind this is, but that's fine with me. I'm not really sensitive to that. Under the gameplay options, you can actually invert the camera, and there's something called streaming mode. I'm not actually sure what this does, but it exists. Under controls, you are also able to rebind all the keys you need. You can also use a gamepad, always nice to see. And then you can just reset everything to default. So while it's not the greatest options menu in the world, it is robust enough to get a thumbs up from me. Well, now that we've looked at that, let's actually take a look at some of the game. Now, before we get into the live commentary section of this video, I think it's pretty important to talk about the presentation and the narrative in this game because those are very, very important aspects for a game like this, and they are done very well in the Turing Test. So we'll start off with me explaining how I would describe this game to, say, one of my friends. And that would be take Portal in one hand, take 2001: A Space Odyssey in the other hand, and kind of smash those together. The Turing Test is what you're left with. It's definitely not Portal, it's definitely not 2001, but you can tell that it drew heavy inspiration from both of these franchises. First of all, let's talk about how it's kind of like 2001: A Space Odyssey. Well, you're in space, and space travel isn't really presented in this like crazy super sci-fi way. It's presented in a really realistic, grounded way that is so much more different than any other game I've played. Like, I played a lot of game where you're flying around in space, you're exploring other planets, but I've never felt like an astronaut before. You feel so insignificant, You're not traveling to another planet to conquer it. You're traveling to another planet to survive. It is awesome. Of course, you do have kind of an AI companion, I guess you could say, Tom, which I believe is the ship's kind of AI that he kind of helps you, and you speak to him a lot during some of these test chambers, and you're trying to pass these sort of Turing tests. So you can kind of see where some of the 2001 inspiration comes from in there as well. Now, my main thing that I really, really like about both the story and both the presentation of the game is just how much everything just seems to work, I'm not some superhero running around with a gun slicing down aliens. I'm just trying to solve a puzzle and figure out just what happened to my crew. And I'm also trying not to die on the horrible surface of this deadly looking moon. And it's just a really interesting kind of way to look at things. And of course, it's like Portal because, you're a girl, you're traveling through test chambers, solving puzzles while AI talks to you. But without the wit, I guess, because the AI in this game in general have a very serious tone to them. So now that we've kind of blathered on about the game for a while, let's cut to kind of the live action part so you can see what the game actually looks like in progress. Alright, time for the live commentary part of the game. This is taking place in Sector A4, so this is like kind of partway through Chapter 1 to avoid spoilers. So let's get started. We'll take a look at a couple of basic test chambers. These ones should be really easy, so I shouldn't be spoiling a whole lot, but it should get you a good idea of what the basic game is going to feel and look like. So every test chamber starts with you going through these decontamination things. They remind me a lot of the material emancipation grids from Portal. I'm not sure if they serve the same purpose, but I suspect they might.
They really have completely repurposed these rooms. I am quite impressed.
So, what were they used for before?
Most of them were used for storage. But they have converted them beyond recognition. Perhaps they ran out of things to do out here. The devil makes work for idle hands.
Pretty much every chamber you come into, you're greeted with a small amount of story, which usually takes place in the form of a conversation between Ava Turing and Tom, which is the AI that's controlling this mission. And as things go on, you start to kind of uncover what exactly is going on here, since the essential plot of the game is that your crew, something happened to them on this station, and they've set up these strange Turing tests that an AI can't bypass, and locked themselves in behind. So we're not quite sure what happened yet. One thing I'd also like to point out is we're going to take a quick look at the graphics. They've turned on their Star Trek lens flare generators here. That's the first thing I thought of when I was in a space station and I just saw the lens flares everywhere. And if we look at the textures, they're not like super ultra crisp, but if you look at everything from a distance, especially with how great the lighting is in this game, I really like the way the lighting is, I think that everything looks really good, keeping in mind this is ultra quality. Now, the gameplay itself functions based on power management. As you can see, there's a wire leading up to that door, and there's a lever, and if I flip this lever, power comes to down here. I'm also able to grab power from these nodules and place them into other locations, and that's essentially how I solve tests. Now again, this is the very beginning of the game, so most of these tests are going to be very easy. Okay, so now for this puzzle, you can see we need to get that power station over to there, and I have tried this pretty extensively. There's no way to sort of cheat and kind of grab the power and slip through the doors. They close very fast. It seems to me like, unlike the Talos Principle, which is another game that deals with transhumanism and it also deals with kind of puzzles at the same time, there's not going to be a ton of secrets and stuff in this game. At least not secrets that involve bypassing puzzles and stuff like that. And I don't think there's a secondary objective, which I guess is a little bit of a shame, but I was never a big fan of finding all the stars in that game. So let's go to section A6 here. I think we'll be greeted with some more dialogue.
The crew are deeper inside the base, it seems.
They must be trying to survive. Can you find their precise location?
I'm afraid not. I am working to regain control. Though I once had complete control of this base, a lot has changed in the past 500 hours.
Okay, so as you can see, we're ready with a little bit more story and a kind of a new puzzle mechanic, this time dealing with these cubes. The cubes can also power doors, as you can see there, so we can come through here, climb up, and oh no, this door is locked, so we'll have to figure out the mysterious way to solve this puzzle. And they do get more complex earlier if you're worried that this game is going to be too easy, because as soon as I started playing, I was a little concerned about that. Don't worry, the later chapters really up the difficulty and make you really have to think creatively to solve some of your problems. So there we go, we've solved yet another test chamber, and I think this basically covers it. I think the next chamber features one of the last new mechanics I'm going to show you, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the game and we'll be done. Okay, so this part features two new mechanics. The first is these green energy orbs, which flicker the power on and off. And the second is these magnets, which, if you see here, allow me to pick up things, but only intermittently because the power is flickering. Now, I'm not going to actually finish solving this puzzle. It is, fairly easy to solve. I'm sure you could probably figure it out. Because I want to talk about one more thing, and that is the restricted access areas. You run into these a couple times in the game, and these appear to be the only form of, kind of secrets that are available. I did solve the second one. This one, I'm not 100% sure how you would want to solve, at least at this stage of the game. Now, the game breaks up a lot of these purely puzzle sections with kind of these narrative-focused little hub areas.
This is the command center. You can check on the crew status from here.
And you'll be able to tell when you're in one of these areas because it puts your gun away and you're greeted with the weird hand in your face walking animation. And here you can learn a little bit about the story, so we can actually look and learn about the Europa lander on this planetarium that apparently we brought with us to Europa, which is a little strange. And there'll also be computer terminals and audio diaries, which are an important part of the story, located somewhere.
Tom, start recording.
I am always recording, Daniel.
The day is January the 6th. My watch says it's 2:30 on Earth. Here we are, members of the human race, standing on Jupiter's moon Europa. I am Captain Daniel McLean. I'm joined here by the rest of my team. It is our intention to make this moon our home and investigate life on this planet. Man's curiosity and appetite for discovery will continue to change our world for the better.
Inspiring. And might I add my congratulations to you all.
So yeah, there's basically stuff like that. You also have the ability to pick up and kind of analyze objects here if you like to take a closer look at them. You don't appear to be able to do anything, but it is kind of interesting, you know, to just check out the little objects. Reminds me a little bit like an adventure game. And again, we can learn a little bit about things like Jupiter in this planetarium that we, a bunch of astronauts, brought with us to space, which is a little weird. So I think it's conclusion time. Now you may be wondering, okay Xuul, you've talked a lot about the Turing Test, you've showed us it, but what do you think? And I think my answer is pretty obvious if you know anything about me. I really, really love this game. It deals with some really interesting themes, it has fun gameplay, it is awesome, and I highly, highly recommend it. This game gets my review rating of buy it. I don't think you need to wait for a sale or anything like that. Grab this game and play it. It's going to be coming out August 30th, 2016. I'd like to give another special thank you to the publishers once again for giving me an early copy of this game free of charge so that I could check it out. Until the next review, I have been Xuul, and I hope that you have an excellent day.